Hello, and welcome to Fintech Surge Podcast, creating a wealth of opportunities through fintech innovations in the Middle East for the Middle East. Powered by Fintech Surge, the region's leading fintech festival, hosted by Dubai World Trade Center alongside GITEX Global. Thank you for joining us. We're here with Toby Babb, co-founder and chief executive officer of Harrington Starr. Thank you for joining us, Toby. Sorry.
Absolute pleasure. It's I get the Tony a lot, but it's lovely to be here.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's it's kind of whenever you start a podcast, it's always great to make sure that you sort of fumble at the beginning. That way, everything else is a lot more fluid.
Everyone feels comfortable. I like your style.
Yeah, for sure. So from the information I have, you've been in the industry for over 20 years, and you've seemed to have really come to understand how to implement, encourage, and deliver on financial services and technology recruitment. It just seems like a whole lot of kind of different things kind of come together to make one person and your career. Can you tell us a little bit what do you mean by how to deliver on financial services, technology, or recruitment, and how you came to this sort of role?
Yeah, of course. So, first and foremost, it ages me a lot, that doesn't it? It's just over 22 years now since I first stumbled into recruitment, and over that time, it's been something which I've absolutely fallen in love with, and I think that the probably very early on in my career, I bumped into the financial technology world, and we were more of a generic recruiter at that stage in the company I was working with. And when we started up Harrington Starr 12 years ago, the industry was that we wanted to niche in was something I was really passionate about, which was financial technology. And over the 22 years, but particularly over the last dozen, we've seen a whole wave of innovation within it, and it's changed tremendously. From being something there where 22 years ago, which is going to sound ridiculous, but you were sending CVs via post and fax as opposed to via email, through to now where LinkedIn has changed the world a little bit, and content marketing's come in, and outreach and community and everything in between. It's two different jobs. But one thing that's been constant is that there's been a need from the financial services industry to drive tech talent, and all the way through that time, it hasn't been easy for companies to attract, engage, and retain the right clients, the right candidates to drive their business further forward. And what we've always been very passionate about is helping people understand that, get their value proposition out there, make sure their interview processes are on point, and helping companies that the strapline of our business is your success, our business, which is about making sure people can grow their teams, grow their brands, grow their networks, and from that, everyone grows their careers and their companies from it too. So it's something I love, and it's something I'm very, very passionate about, and could be talking about for hours. So I'll try not to drone on too much for you, Steve.
That's amazing. So longer the days where our parents told us to, you want to get a job, go knocking on doors. Go down the street, knock on every
Yeah,
single
yeah.
door, give them your CV, and then don't come home until you found a job.
Do you know what? You can still do that, but it's if you want to knock on my door, I can do it for you.
That makes sense. I mean, even back when I used to run my own agency, there was times where people would come up to the office with a CV, and as much as I appreciated the ambition and the outgoingness of that approach, it was like, we set up all these platforms for you to apply to us. But do you even know who we are? Or you just saw an office door and decided to go knock on
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I love. I love sometimes seeing outside the tubes over here in London, where I'm based. You quite often see people stood outside with sandwich boards, talking about looking for a job. These are my backgrounds, and do you know what? I always love a bit of innovation with someone who's a bit more proactive than sort of sat there and waiting for things to come to them. But I think there's smarter ways of being able to market yourself, and there's some really great agencies out there and great companies who can help people do that. Look, we've got two customers effectively. One of them pays us, one of them doesn't. The candidates will come to us and say, look, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for, this is my skill set. Who's the best people for me to be talking to? And our job's to go out there and make sure we're putting the right opportunities and not wasting anyone's time into it. The other side is companies there who are looking to grow, and the whole piece is about making sure we help people achieve that and grow to their to their ambition.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that, maybe back in the day, maybe your technology or recruitment meant I need to find somebody with a computer sciences degree that understands how to code. And now we're moving into the eras such as, fintech innovation, blockchain and crypto space. So it's not just a matter of, are you able to work with computers? But, do you understand the space? Do you understand what blockchain is? Do you know how to implement blockchain? Can you create an NFT? Can you put our company in the metaverse? So how have you and the rest of you at Harrington Starr sort of had to adapt to sort of this new demand for the blockchain and crypto talent?
Yes, I think this is really interesting. So I'll roll back, seeing we're being a bit nostalgic. I'll roll back 20 years again to when I first started, and yeah, you're looking at a technologist, and you're basically seeing someone there who is your classic, ponytail and Jesus sandals, and sat there in the corner of a room, not wanting to deal with anyone. And technology and business was very very separate. And I think people had technology to because they needed to have technology, and it might be a bit of innovation in there, et cetera, et cetera. But it was technologists were a different breed and didn't communicate with the business in any way, shape, or form. And that's evolved a lot over the last couple of decades, but particularly I think over the last couple of years. And it was starting to go pre-pandemic, and then probably over the last 10 years we've seen a lot more people who are technologists needing to show more business knowledge. But I think,
Hmm.
with the evolution of digital technology and businesses effectively being digital by nature now, digitally native, you're seeing people there who can't just be your classic coders who sit in the corner who don't have any impact into it, because business and technology has collided more than ever before. And if you look at it within this next wave that we're talking about, and particularly with the advent of crypto and blockchain and everything that can do to the opportunities it creates within the financial markets, and this collision of traditional finance and decentralized finance that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on as well. You're seeing people there who need to have a combination of skill sets, and that is deep technology understanding, but also an understanding of how that moves the marketplace. Now, I do a podcast myself called Fintech Focus TV, and within that, I'm talking. For the last 3 years, I've been talking to hundreds of people about their businesses, and I think the ones that have really thrived aren't the out and out tech guys who are forcing technology onto people, and it's not the business guys who aren't really thinking about where it goes. It's the people there who understand the problem which they're trying to solve, which is a genuine problem for the industry, and they're providing solutions to those, genuine solutions to people within that. And I think that's a fundamentally important part of it. You're looking for someone who is now a hybrid of a good technologist, a strong business analyst and requirements gatherer, and probably product manager that's thrown in there as well. And then they have the sales ability to be able to present and to bring that to life. So even salespeople in tech at the moment are needing that additional knowledge to be able to have the credibility to help people solve their problems and explain it in deep technology into layman's terms that allows people to understand it and move further forward. But so it creates a really really interesting dynamic about what the future of it all can look like.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I mean, I definitely think, especially when it comes to blockchain and crypto and NFTs, I still think that if you talk to the majority of people, they're not going to be able to have an in-depth conversation about even what all of these mean. Even when it comes to Web3, what is Web3? What is blockchain? What is the metaverse? Why would we need any of these things? And this is really, really innovative technology, and it's technology that can make a huge impact on the world and on the markets within the world. And if the people who understand this the best are just coders who can't communicate or can't actually sell the impact of their technology, then it is going to actually affect us all. And so, as you're talking about the coders, they kind of needing some of that soft skill. They need to understand business as well as just how to actually develop technology. It sort of makes me think of like building a house where you have a salesperson that sells a client, then they hire a contractor. The contractor hires construction workers, and I think kind of in the past, construction workers were the coders. Those were the people that
Mm,
did the work and actually built what was going on, whereas a contractor might be the project manager. Now we're seeing that sort of inverted. Wouldn't you say that now it's almost like the people that are actually building it are the ones that are having the input on where the market goes, and it's almost like, okay, we've created a great product, now we just need someone to sell it for us. So it's kind of a reverse role situation.
Yeah, I love that analogy, and I hadn't ever thought of it like that before. And I guess that when if you think about the architects that are involved in all of that sort of process, and it maps out very similarly to what we're what you look at in a standard technology roadmap and where things go. And look, I think that informative nature. I look at it and I think, right, where are most founders coming from at the moment? What's the background of most founders? And I think within financial technology of innovative startups in the space, traditionally you've seen founders being from a couple of different backgrounds, either deep technologists or salespeople, or to an extent bankers who've moved into looking at something new. And I think right now it's really interesting to see this emergence of product managers whose job is to go out there and really understand the needs of the customers and then provide solutions to it. And I think some of the fastest growing fintechs at the moment, and particularly in this space, are people who really come from that product background and are able to bring it through. Now, product background needs that combination of your construction worker, i.e., the person who can create the technology to make things happen, but also then the person who can convert it and take complex, as you say, a complex set of technologies and make them simple to say this is the problem we're solving. And I
Right.
think it's that it's those people who can illustrate that and explain that in the best possible way that really have the the world in the palm of their hand at the moment in terms of what they can do and where they can create opportunities in this marketplace.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that you really make a good point about simplifying some of this technology. And I think that as we hear these buzzwords like blockchain and Web3 and all these sort of things, I think that some of the reasons why it's so difficult to understand is because I think that we've been trying to sell the technology behind the applications, when the truth is I don't know if everybody really needs to understand what blockchain is in order to understand what blockchain can do. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Yeah,
So
it absolutely makes sense to me, and I think there's a lot of people who get turned in circles around it, and I think there's a lot of overcomplication.
mm,
And I do think that person who's got the ability to translate is the person who's in the driving seat at the moment.
yeah, for sure. I mean, we see with fintech, like, whenever we tap our phone to make a payment, we don't need to know all of the different integrations, all the APIs, all the security checks, what happens from the clearance house and the banks and the vendor, and we don't really need to know all that. All we need to know is that when I tap my phone, money gets paid out, the merchant gets their money, everybody's happy. But I think that so fintech, I believe, has done a great job in sort of simplifying the technology within finance to just say here's the benefits to the end user. And I think that the blockchain space could kind of take a note from the fintech space and say we don't need to explain to people what a node is and what decentralized means and why it's more important to be decentralized than centralized. All they need to know is that your money is safer, that transactions can happen faster, that there's not one single entity or institution or government or authority that's controlling everything. It's within your control. And I think that
Absolutely,
if we can go ahead.
I think it's a clear benefit statement, isn't it? You're looking. It's interesting you mentioned the phone there because I think the phone has fundamentally changed people's expectations, and it's moved from buyer beware to seller beware. Everyone is so much more informed about what they expect. Everyone's got higher expectations of what they should and shouldn't be able to do because you can basically pick up a phone. I was speaking to my father-in-law about this last week on holiday, where your phone now is your Encyclopedia Britannica going really far back. It gives you every bit of information you need at the flick of a switch. It's your camera roll. It's your torch. It's got every single part of it is there in your hand, in your pocket, and available straight away. So our expectations have inexorably risen within that, and I think everyone who's there has this shortened attention span as to what should happen and how quickly it should happen. And the beauty of technology and the beauty of blockchain is simplification and ease of use. And I think the companies who I've been massively impressed with over the last few years are the ones who can sit there and say, this is demystifying, this is about speed, this is about efficiency, this is about friction reduction, this is about making life easier for you. And I think that's I trace all that back down to the ever increasing significance of phoning, the phone in everyone's daily life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's genuinely an extension of our body, right? I mean, I was having a
100%.
conversation the other day that, I wonder if you ask a heavy smoker or somebody just addicted to anything, what do you think you can go longer without smoking or without your phone?
That's
It'd be interesting, right? So people that could never that have a hard time giving up any sort of addiction say, okay, well, how about this? If you try that, then you can't use your phone. Maybe it'd
yeah.
be easier for them to quit.
I'm definitely not getting rid of mine. It's too important.
Exactly. And actually, as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, so the people that we're looking for are people that are great with technology, that understand the new innovations coming through, that understand how to implement it, understand how it applies to business, how it affects the market, how it affects the end consumer. How do we recruit these people? I mean, if we're trying to take our business into the metaverse, or we're trying to create NFTs for our company, or we're trying to put our company on blockchain, like how do you even look for that in the market to say this is the person that's right for me?
Yes, that's a great question. I think there's sort of twofold to it. Number one is that there is an element of technical skill that's needed for this. So as always, as long as recruitment's been around, is you're looking to match necessary skills with the requirement that you have to be able to do that. Now, I'll go on to how you find that sort of individual in a second, but I think the principal part of recruitment is the definition at the start, the discovery aspect. So what are you actually needing to do, and what's the ambition of this particular role? What does it need to fill? What function does it need to fill?
Do you believe
Along,
that that's the easy question to ask people that are hiring? Do they
I think
always know what they're
I
looking
think
for?
yeah, I think that's a great question. So 9 times out of 10, a it will need expectation management. So there'll
Hmm.
be extra questions. So the skill, the ultimate skill of a recruiter isn't how influential they are; it's how good they are at questioning.
Sure.
So our team should be world class at being able to. Sorry, there's a enormous amount of noise coming out from some construction outside. So apologies if
I,
that's just.
I don't hear any of it actually.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, just conscious of that from outside. So, yeah, look, the ultimate skill of a recruiter is to ask the questions, allow people to create that sort of spec behind it. And what people will do is they say, right, we think we need this, and our job will be able to say, right, what if we could add X or Y or Z and help you get to that sort of thing. So this isn't a monkey see, monkey do. Here's a list of here's a piece of paper. Go out and find us that person. It's let's work together in partnership to understand what that might look like and what that can create, because there's still this overwhelming overarching thing to say, right, I want to have someone who can already do this role, who's going to come in from another company where they're doing it already, which they're leaving because they're bored in their current job. They come over here and 6 months later they're doing it, which is why we've got this issue in recruitment worldwide where there is an average tenure of about 14 months across the industry.
Hmm.
And if you think about that and its impact and its cost value, it's awful. And it's kind of like a contractor world in technology, because people are there and they're thirsting for new and new opportunities and new information and changing, looking for the emperor's new clothes all the time. Whereas I think a company should be looking at it and saying, right, let's look at how we can create this journey for that particular individual, for them to achieve where they want to go. So we're looking on one side at helping people define what they're looking for, and people will generally know the sort of skill sets and what the function of that role is. But what they might not know is what's the dynamic of how that person can really fit into the team, how long are they're going to stay, what's their motivations, where do they want to go, who do they want to be, etc., etc. And those are things that we'll work really closely with companies on to try and define, to make sure we've taken the germination of the idea, the acorn of the idea, and allow it to grow into the oak tree that allows them to get the right hire and make that moving further forward. In terms of
Yeah.
the other part of the implied question, I think that where you're going, which is all about where, what, and how do you find these people, is look, there are skill sets that are evolving at such speed at the moment that people might not necessarily have the necessary skills Like, you can't have someone with 15 years worth of of deep crypto experience and all this
Sure,
sort
they don't have a blockchain master's degree at this
exactly
point, right?
right. Exactly right. So what are the transferable skills that they've looked at? What areas of technology can move across to that? And where's the passion and the interest? And there's a lot of people there who are deeply passionate, as you know, about this space. There's a lot of people who've got who see it as their passion, and they start to research and they start to show these sort of things. And so what we're not necessarily looking for is the finished article, and what we're not necessarily looking for is 3 or 4 years worth of physical experience in that space. But we're looking for people who have the attitude, the aptitude, and the background to be able to cross train into these sort of things. And that's why I think it's such an exciting time for the industry to be not just saying, right, here's a black and white spec, looking for a black and white CV that matches it perfectly, and then move on to the next job. This is
Right.
about helping people move into the next generation of what humanity might look like, which I think is a really interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that Nadia and I were discussing on our podcast about diversity and inclusion and creating an environment where people can thrive without necessarily fitting a certain stereotype or a certain role. As you know, they're not necessarily that boisterous, they don't necessarily speak up, they don't have to yell, they don't have to be that aggressive, whereas that is traditionally what is rewarded in most businesses. So as you're talking, I'm thinking about, like, somebody that is the expert in blockchain and a traditional business that is trying to innovate and trying to bring itself into blockchain. Chances are, when they hire that person, they're essentially going to be tokenized. No pun in, no pun intended with tokens
Yeah,
and crypto, but
it works anyway.
yeah, they're probably not going to be hired into a team that is already established and is already in charge of the blockchain, and they're fitting a role. It's going to be one person who their job is to take a company and essentially ruffle some feathers and sort of remold it, which I imagine that creates some friction within that person's career and the office environment as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. So the friction in a person's career is generally someone who's moving into this space is looking for that. They're not looking to stand still. You're talking about visionaries. You're talking about people who are early adopters still, and people who are looking to see and create change. Now, with that, as with all areas around digital assets at the moment, there's naturally an element of risk that's involved around that, which is why alongside that you're probably seeing a premium on salaries to a certain extent.
Mhm.
There's an element of debt, there's an element of danger money that's involved within it. But I think, look, if you're a company who is investing into that particular area, it's because you believe that it's the future of where financial services and greater areas of technology are heading. And you're committed to that, and you're ready to back people within it. If you're a candidate who's a job seeker who's looking to move into that sort of space, you recognise there's an element of risk around what you're doing, and you do your due diligence to allow that to happen. But people, I think, are encouraging friction at the moment. People are encouraging friction because it creates innovation. Innovation creates answers, that creates opportunities for people to go on and thrive. So I think that's something there which people are generally looking to achieve and backing within it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a complete sense. So, I mean, it really seems like, we are in an era of, crossing over from one thing to the next thing, right? I mean, like you mentioned, the phones are an extension of us. Back in 2005, that wasn't necessarily the case. We had a phone if we needed to call
Mm,
somebody, but it wasn't vital to our everyday life, to our everyday function, whether it's calling people, messaging people, checking what's going on social media, staying relevant socially, paying for things, getting your bills taken care of. Everything now is on our phones. In 2005, that wasn't the case, and then all of a sudden there's this big demand for app developers, where people,
yeah,
like we were talking about before, the coders that kind of just sit in the corner, make sure that the website's secure, make sure that it looks pretty, and all of a sudden, well, I have to design something that for mobile, like, we don't even have that yet. And I
yeah,
think we're kind of going over the same thing again. People are being hired for blockchain and metaverse and all this sort of stuff. And we're really sort of in that cusp of old versus new once again. And I know that you're starting a documentary, correct?
yeah. I'm really excited about this. So it's something which we're looking at, which which is exactly around this. There's I guess our journey of moving from traditional financial technology recruitment, you know, uh, most most centrally around the capital markets, has seen us sort of move into this growing trend of companies who we've traditionally worked with, banks, asset managers, hedge funds, all recognizing the power and the potential between of digital assets and crypto as an asset class in itself as well. And so the more this conversation was happening, the more we were seeing it, the more we recognized there's an opportunity to create this documentary, which is called The Era of Convergence. And it's all about the collision path that we've seen coming on from of decentralized finance, originally being there to disrupt, to overtake institutional traditional finance, and now actually both sides recognizing that they are interdependent.
Mhm.
And I think what we're seeing is a whole load of digital asset firms who've been there to be the punks and the visionaries,
Mhm.
recognize that there is a lot of regulation to really take the potential of digital assets to its for needs a lot of experience. And I think traditional finance has seen it, rather than being this sort of waspish money laundering thing that they probably thought when we had them on panels in
Mhm.
5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. They're recognizing this is revolutionary, and particularly, and I think they're particularly excited about the technology behind it. So what we're seeing is traditional finance looking to embrace and bring in the visionary technologists who are behind the DeFi movement. And what we're seeing in the DeFi world is them wanting to embrace and partner with the institutions and traditional finance businesses to allow it to really move on to the next level as well. So rather than it being two warring factions, we're seeing this sort of entente cordiale where the two sides are coming together to create the future of finance, which I think is fascinating. So we've got some really interesting conversations lined up in that space, and I can't wait to release that documentary. It's going to be great.
That sounds great. We look forward to it. And something that I always ask on these podcasts, especially when it talks about fintechs and innovations within the finance space or blockchain, decentralized finance. I always ask, like, is this technology going to completely wipe out the way that we see things now? Is decentralized finance going to completely take over traditional finance? Are we going to have a need for a bank now that we have neo banks and digital banks popping up? Are we going to have a need for these big institutions whenever we have a lot of these fintechs that are sort of doing the same thing, doing it a little bit more seamlessly, doing it a little bit quicker? And I always ask, like, is it going to be this or that? Will it eventually shift over? And it sounds to me like you believe it's more of an integration than a shift.
Yes, so look, we've had various incarnations, haven't we, of the fintech revolution, and I've always believed it's never been a revolution. So if you look at the internet coming through, it's about how people adapt to that. If you look then at the electronification of financial markets, that was moving things on to the next level again. And I believe that this is all about efficiency. And so whilst I don't think this is the war of the fintechs versus the incumbents, and only one can win and one will smother the other, or it's an embracing aspect. And maybe 2010, 2015 was an era where it was all about fintechs are coming to eat banks lunch, etc., etc. What banks did was recognize it, embrace it, create innovation labs and tech hubs, and back fintechs and say, right, how
Hmm.
can we utilize this to digitalize and make things better? And I believe that this is the same play, where you're just looking at technology increasing speed, efficiency, control, cost, every single aspect you want it to do. And I think this is just another very exciting landmark in the evolution of financial services. And this one, I think, has people at the heart of it, and efficiency at the heart of it, and cost at the heart of it, and speed at the heart of it. That makes for very interesting opportunities for all parties. I don't think it's one wins and one loses. I think everyone can be better from it.
That's great. And I was having a conversation the other day with the CEO of a new digital bank, and he was saying that statistically, about 70% of human behavior somehow links to some sort of financial transaction, which means
Mm,
that fintech, it's really too much at stake to not progress, right? If 70% of everything we do somehow involves finance and technology, then the more seamless, it's not really convenient. It's actually just necessary. And really, that's kind of what the shows that we're putting on are all about. We have Future Blockchain Summit and FinTech Surge are co-located with GITEX 2020 in October 10th through October 13th at Dubai World Trade Center. And we tried to really get this message across as much as possible, that we're inviting the banks, we're inviting the institutions, the regulatory authorities, the insurance companies, investors, startups, unicorns, people that are looking for jobs, people that are looking to invest. So it's really the full ecosystem that we create in here for
mm.
people to kind of converge, as you said, to make sure that it's not a matter of, well, who's going to win. Is it going to be the new fintechs, or is it going to be the banks, or are the banks going to stop the fintechs from reaching their full potential, or will the banks possibly innovate, which would negate the need for fintechs? These are all kind of the conversations that we have throughout our event. And for the most part, it is 100% welcomed by everybody in the ecosystem to have these discussions and say, how can the fintechs work together with the banks? How can decentralized work with traditional? And it's a really exciting time, and it's really exciting that we're bringing all of these people together, over 100,000 technology buyers coming together to witness this sort of explosion of technology that we're facing today.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, and I love what you guys are doing, because I think this is our business was founded on the whole concept of community, and we looked at it, and we saw that there are banks, there are hedge funds, there are asset managers, there are vendors, there are service providers, there are challengers, there are startups, and all of these people are interdependent. And our goal has been to put ourselves in the middle of that, to be able to provide service and value and content and information that puts all of those people together and create opportunities for those people to mix and grow their networks and grow their brands. And I think during the pandemic, one of the things that I greatly missed, and the conversations I had, which came up more than anything else with founders, and when I asked them about their concerns in March 2020 about, right, what are you worried about, was we create a hell of a lot of our networks and our meetings and our physical face-to-face opportunities at events, and all of a sudden the lights were switched off on that, and people were moving to virtual events and such like, and people were saying, right, that saves us money on stands, it saves us money on cost and travel, and it was almost like, could this be a bright new future? And my gut always told me that actually the future of event marketing was going to be incredibly powerful, and because people yearn for that human connection and that face-to-face opportunity and the learning. And I think what's great about what you guys are doing is there's an awful lot for people to learn in this, and people have an innate desire to want to hear and question and debate and see panels and see speakers and have those opportunities to build their skill sets by even talking about it on panels and events themselves as well. And I think that's an incredibly powerful and important aspect of the ecosystem, to have those opportunities for people to get together, to have those opportunities for people to network, to co-create, to think about the marketplace, and create a whole new level of thinking and thought that can really drive this further forward. Because this is without question the most exciting period of financial markets that I've seen in 22 years of having worked in it. And I think if this gets, when this gets right, you'll suddenly see a surge in an industry that I'm incredibly passionate about. And to have events like yours that are allowing that to happen, I think is really, really exciting. So keep up the good work, sir.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, it really sounds like for you, trade shows like Future Blockchain Summit and FinTech Surge are not just, a nice to have, but pretty much a crucial necessity for businesses to really thrive and come together.
I think without question, if I'm speaking to 99 leaders out of 100, they'll recognize the significance of events like yours, not only for their ability to meet, to connect, to win new clients, but predominantly for their ability to think, to adjust, to innovate, and I think that's a really undervalued part of an event community. And I think it's the content and the value you can create from all those sort of things that are fundamental to the growth of the industry. So yeah, as I say, keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much for that, Toby, and thank you for joining us today. Honestly, it's really refreshing to kind of get a sort of a talent perspective on the blockchain industry. I think that a lot of times we're talking about the applications of it. We're talking about what's happening in the market. How is the UAE doing for the blockchain ecosystem, but it's really exciting to see the people side of it. Who are the people behind this? And it really seems like you guys at the Harrington Starr have done a great job of kind of getting that inside of your grasp.
Well, we love it, and thank you for thank you for saying that. But I think it's just I'm passionate about people, full stop. And I think if you look at any business anywhere in the world and think what the difference between their success and failure is, it's generally coming down to people. And
For
what I
sure.
love doing is allowing companies to access those people and make sure they've got if you've got a great idea, it's only going to become a sustainable great idea if you've got people there who can drive it further forward. If you've got a poor idea, great people can make that into a great idea. And if you've got a great idea and poor people, it works in completely the opposite for manner as well. So we see it as a real duty to help people maximize their potential by bringing the best possible people into their teams, and it's something we'll remain forever passionate about.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your insights. I'm sure that a lot of our audience is going to appreciate it as well. We look forward to the era of convergence. I'm sure it's going to be a blockbuster hit in theaters everywhere. And, so let us know whenever that comes out.
We certainly will. Look, listen, it's a real pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on the show, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe for all the latest updates on FinTech in the Middle East and join the conversation over on our social channels. We look forward to seeing you at FinTech Surge in the Dubai World Trade Center from October 10th to October 13th. I'm Stephen Besse, and this has been the FinTech Surge podcast, creating a wealth of opportunities.